Hi everybody, welcome to our Governance Made Easy webinar titled The Role of Directors AI, the Role of Directors and Boards, with our very special guests Lloyd Mander, Bean Kamak-Elliott and Hilary Walton. My name's Sean McDonald and I'll be your somewhat moderator for the next 45 minutes. So thanks for attending today. Firstly, we really appreciate the effort you make to be here for our live events. And during the session, if you have any questions for our panel, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We'll be answering these during our session. We'll try and get through as many of these as we have time for. And finally, if you stay through till the end, which we hope you will do, and as is customary for our webinars, we have a special treat for you. By answering our really short 1-minute survey, you'll go into the draw to win our beautiful gift hamper worth over $400. Now, for those who are not too familiar with BoardPro, we're a board software provider, sometimes called a board portal, that serve just over 25,000 users around the world. I think now we're in about 26 different countries. And we enable organizations to prepare for and run their board meetings more efficiently and effectively with, you guessed it, clever software with less time and deliver more impact and value for the organization. And as much as we are a board software provider, part of our wider mission is to make the fundamentals of governance free and easy to implement for all organizations, especially those with resource constraints. So let me now introduce, or actually I won't introduce, I'll have our team introduce themselves. We'll start with Lloyd. Over to you, sir.
Amihi, thank you, Sean. And kia ora koutou, welcome everyone, whether you're joining us live or watching us sometime in the future. What an interesting topic we've got today, one you certainly cannot avoid due to the unrelenting media attention and perhaps what's happening or not happening in your organisations. I'm Lloyd Mander from DOT Scorecard, that's Diversity of Thought Scorecard. We evaluate boards, senior teams to understand their diversity of thought and how they can apply it to address complex decisions. Using AI to support decision-making and potentially enhance diversity of thought is one of my interests. And last year, I conducted a pilot study where I assessed the skills, experiences, and wider diversity of thought of the governance board, and then set up a generative AI board member to not replace what the board was doing, but to fill in the gaps where they might not have the same experience and depth. And help them to sort of understand what are the matters they should be considering, what kind of questions should they be asking. The board, during this little pilot study, did find it quite interesting and did find it sort of somewhat useful. There were, however, some limitations related to not sharing confidential information through public generative AI systems, and also kind of understanding what's the best time to apply AI insights within the meeting. In a way that sort of fitted with the human contributions. I suspect a theme from today's conversation may not just be the AI opportunity, but also some of the implementation challenges too. Now, I'm definitely not an AI expert. I am a curious director. And so for all you curious directors joining us today, I'm standing in somewhat for you. We're very fortunate to have two outstanding panelists, Hilary and Bede, who'll be sharing their insights and answering our questions. As Sean has mentioned, this will go very quickly, so do feel free to post your questions straight away as you think of them. Don't save them for the end. As part of our introductions, I've asked our other panelists to share how they first became interested in AI or started working with AI. For me, I actually had someone pitch an AI project to me back in 2014 relating to computer vision. And of course, with what's happened in more recent years, I think that might have been a bit of a missed opportunity that I didn't pick up. Now we're going to begin with Hilary and then move on to Bede. So welcome, Hilary.
Hi, Lloyd. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Hills Walton and I work for Microsoft. I'm a technology strategist there, which is a bit like being a CTO or Chief Technology Officer, but on behalf of your customers. So I'm working with customers in New Zealand as they come to grips with what AI means for their organisation and figuring out what they can build, how it might change their business models and internal processes, as well as their employee experience, but also their customer experiences as well. I'm also a director. I work with the Christchurch City Council on the Audit and Risk Management Committee. And I'm also an ex-Chief Information Security Officer. And so I used to work with the Cordia Group, which is a business-to-business telco in New Zealand. And then prior to that, I was a Chief Information Officer at Airways, which is New Zealand's air navigation services provider. But I actually started my career as a psychologist in the Royal New Zealand Air Force. So a really diverse kind of set of skills and perspectives, which I'm bringing to this conversation. If I'm honest, when I first discovered AI, it was probably about the same time everyone else did, strangely enough. I'd always done bits and pieces in terms of business insights and data analytics, but the true kind of AI that we're seeing today was when famously ChatGPT launched, OpenAI's most famous, large language model. And outside of my executive career, I'm a content creator, and that's the main use that I discovered it for. So I sort of found out that I could write my LinkedIn posts or my articles or my newsletters using the large language model to help me really frame up a really beautifully looking article, and that blew my mind. And then as time has gone on, it's been pretty incredible in terms of content creation, just how much I can get done now, because obviously busy day job, have to do everything else in and around family and mornings and evenings, and just how much content creation I can do now. That is one of my loves. Some people play golf or they, run marathons. I like to do content creation. So yeah, there we go, Lloyd. There I am, a little bit about me and how I became really passionate about AI.
Fantastic, thank you. And Bede.
Sure, everybody. My name's Bede. The whole AI thing, I have known about since I started my first startup in 2003, which is called C Digital. And C Digital, we have tens of thousands of cameras, CCTV cameras, I mean, deployed in all manner of businesses, literally the breadth and length of New Zealand. So tens of thousands of things recording all manner of events, from smoko rooms right through to factory floors and distribution centres and all those sorts of things. And I've known about AI since the inception of that business for security use cases, people jumping fences, etc. We protect $5.5 billion worth of assets every night for some of New Zealand's leading businesses and most loved brands. And a number of years ago, one of our clients had a 16-year-old unlicensed driver. He couldn't drive a car, climb on a forklift, and with the encouragement of the 23-year-old supervisor, while racing the forklift, rolled and he fell out and it killed him instantly. And the business involved the CEO sat down with me a number of weeks later once the dust had settled, and he said, look, we've played back our CCTV footage and we've realized that we have people racing forklifts every Friday afternoon. We have all manner of unsafe behaviors involving forklifts and people. And at the same time, the regulator, WorkSafe, got footage from us and said and analysed it, and then smacked this customer with 500 different events involving people and forklifts. And so the CEO of this business sat me down and he looked at me in the eye and he goes, how did I not know? And then he went, how would I know? How would we know to go and look for these events? So that has ended up becoming a startup called SEO. It's spelled SEEO, and that is the Latin word to know. And what SEO does is ingests CCTV footage, and then using a suite of clever computer vision AI technologies, it analyzes it for compliance and insights into critical risk controls. So health and safety people spend a huge amount of time, and directors spend a huge amount of time trying to answer the question, how do we keep people safe? And so they identify what their critical risks are and build controls around them. And most controls involve a behavioral element. So if you have a walkway and you put fancy yellow fencing around it, do people use it? Yes or no? We don't necessarily know. And directors usually, and health and safety people, lack lead indicators. They've got no idea really whether their health and safety efforts actually make a difference. CEO answers that question. So CEO analyzes the footage and can tell them there's people too close to forklifts or whatever. We've got a very quick 1.5 minute demo of CEO, so you know what we're talking about. But that is my background.
Thanks, Bede, and thanks. And I think it's a really good example of a driving force to implement an AI application, as opposed to a sort of an experimentation how we should be using AI. But of course, in that situation, it's pretty critical. Sean, do we have some slides I think we're going to share with us today? Hilary, would you mind giving us a little bit of a kind of 1 minute thing of where AI came from and where we are at now?
So AI isn't a new topic. It actually has been around for a number of years, like a good sort of 50 years. And it started back at the very start, we're looking at machine learning. And back then it was about, how do you make a machine actually start to run patterns or run design so that it can actually think like a human. And one of the most famous tests that came out of that time was actually the Turing test, which was the test to see if it could actually, which was whether a computer could be seen to be like a human. And then based on that work, they did some more work and ended up doing more AI, where they're looking at creating neural networks. So actually starting to think more about how a brain could work and how it starts to make connections in that respect. And then as time goes on, we get to where we are today in terms of looking at generative AI, which is all about AI, which is actually, where new content is generated using large language models. And so if you think about AI, even though ChatGPT did only launch in November last year, it's actually been around for quite a long time.
And I guess, and you have sort of a proof of that, Bede, given your involvement. Hilary, what are some of the applications and things that you've seen Microsoft clients applying AI to?
So I feel like a lot of organizations are actually starting with some of these really common use cases. For example, looking at how they can build how people can get knowledge more easily within an organization. So they've set about trying to build these kind of safe GPTs over their knowledge management. And that seems to be where a lot of organizations are starting, trying to make sure employees can find files, find information, search the intranets a lot quicker. The next really common use case that we're starting to see is call centers. So there's a lot of efficiencies which can be gained in a call center or a customer service use case. So, for example, might be summarizing a customer's problem so that when they come to the call operator, they have all the information at hand, and then also selecting kind of the best next action that they should take with that particular customer. Otherwise, we're seeing lots of internal use cases. For example, there's lots of HR use cases we're seeing, kind of like a Ask HR examples, because employees always have a lot of really common questions that they're asking the HR people over and over again. But actually, one of the ones that we're seeing picking up quite a bit of effort is also in the finance area. So recognizing that in the finance teams, there's a lot of processes that are running every month and definitely on annual periods and lots of reporting that they're doing, that they can do a lot of AI around as well to make sure that they're focusing those finance people on more kind of strategic or higher order use cases. And then, of course, the one where if people are thinking about really trying to power an AI orientated organization, then actually providing employees with that kind of productivity AI to help them in their everyday role, like Copilot, and there's other ones out there as well. That's a really common one where people are sort of starting to bite their teeth into, just to get their employees used to using AI. Because there is a skill that kind of needs to be learned with trying to change your workflow around how AI works.
Okay, thank you. And there's actually a question come through. I'll go to you, Hilary, then to Bede. The question is, what are some of the most common misconceptions that people have about AI capabilities that directors and boards should be aware of?
So I think one of the common misconceptions, and which is actually what's halting a lot of organizations at the moment, is that leaders are really worried about demonstrating their ROI really, really quickly within their organizations. And while that's possible, if proper change management hasn't been used to implement an AI use case, even if it's just a productivity, like a Copilot one, then the behavior of people doesn't change to really make use of the tool. Because actually using AI is often, it's a personal choice, because you can go back to your old ways and just find information that in the old ways that you normally did. So I think one of the common misconceptions or things that it's hard for organizations to get their head about is actually implementing AI in a way that really changes the behavior of the organization.
Okay, thank you. And Bede?
Hillary's stolen my line, really. The fundamental thing that we need to get our heads around here is that this stuff is 10% technology, 90% change leadership. So these are fundamental change management practices. So I'm actually going to show you a slide later on which demonstrates this in technicolor glory. You have a before where there's no change
Let's do it.
leadership at all.
Should we do it now, Bede? Let's do it now.
Yep.
Sean, do you want to bring up the next one? And we're just going to play a very short video of this CEO in action. So Bede, can you talk us through what we're seeing?
So what's happening here? So CEO's ingesting footage, recorded CCTV footage. This event that you're about to see may be buried within 20 hours of recordings in a day. So this is a real event, and that is a person walking between the two pallets. Take a close look. Look at the bottom left-hand corner down here. See, there's a truck driver with a part of his truck there. That is a person who just about collected. And this is just a bunch of guys playing in a warehouse with a floor sweeper, taking actually great risk. If one of those office chairs hit a stone or a piece of chip of wood, person could face plant onto the ground. So what CEO is doing is ingesting that and showing you. And this is an event. So this is the number of events that have occurred. So
just harrowing as a board member to see that in your organisation would be totally harrowing. And I think our next slide is going on to your story you're telling before around the real importance of leading change. So if you move to the next slide, this one here.
So to the left of the line, that is the number of events, CEO events in this customer. And then the operational person left. We got a new operational person. We engage with them, and they engaged meaningfully using really standard change leadership activities, toolbox meetings, engaging with their team, change their work design, blah, blah, blah. They use the tool to inform the physical environment and look at what happened to the data. So same technology operating, different human resource stuff, that blancmange of activities, and that's the result that you can see. So this, one other thing I'd say about the generative AI thing is that people misunderstand that this stuff is not creating new knowledge. It's not inventing what we'd class as creative thought. It is taking past knowledge and presenting it and allowing unprecedented levels of access to it, but it's not generating new creative thought. It's not intelligent like we'd understand intelligence. So that's just one other thing to be aware of.
Okay, thank you. And I think you've, in our conversations previously, you've said that the change management with AI insights is not meant to be not punitive. It gives you the ability to understand what's really happening and then look at changing procedure or changing the way that management are then addressing those issues. So it's not around pointing a finger.
It is vital that it is used as a carrot, not a stick. And the fastest way to destroy trust is use it as a stick and start beating people up with those insights. And in my experience dealing with various customers, their managers, leaders often are dazzled by how the insights they get from CEO, how it shows the work design as a major contributor to behavior. And for workers, how their behavior is profoundly risky, and they see it with like new eyes. It's like the scales have fallen off their eyes. And all these things, though, as a director, you're unaware of as a general rule. You get a board report saying we've had X number of events, or these are our lead indicator data. This is our lead indicators. This is the number of near misses, and that's about it. You don't get those like true insights, and that's where a tool like CEO and other tools like it can provide incredible insights into what is going on in the health and safety of your organization.
Lloyd, we have a great question.
I do have a great question here. I'm going to lead in with this one here. I've got a few actually. from Rod. Hilary, this is for you first. How do you build a safe GPT without lots of technical knowledge?
So there's probably a couple of ways to think about that. So first you can buy or then you can build. And so if you're buying an AI to help yourself, then what you want to make sure is that you're choosing something with commercial data protection or enterprise level data protection, so that when you're putting information, into the LLM or the chatbot, that your information isn't feeding the model and it's not being used by any other customers and it's not going to turn up anywhere else. So there are examples of how you can do that. There's obviously the Microsoft example in terms of Copilot, or there is OpenAI, and other organizations will have them as well. The other way you can think about that is building, and with that you do need a slightly more technical team to help you build. If you're doing the build piece, you probably want to make sure that you'll have more responsibility for some of the safety and the security controls that you're putting in place with that. So you want to make sure you want to make the right decision for your organization on that one.
The associated question was around using generative AI to summarize large documents. So if you bought your own, for example, Microsoft Copilot access, then that would be safe to use in certain circumstances, or never safe to use?
That's a great question. It's going to depend a little on the companies that you're working for. So for example, as a board member, if you have bought, the Microsoft 365 and you've bought your own Copilot, then you can be sure that any information that you're putting through that is staying within your own personal license. But that may or may not be okay for the organization that you're working with. They may want all of their information to stay within their Microsoft tenant, for example. So that's one to check out with the business that you're actually working on behalf of.
Okay, thank you. Some of the other key success factors we've got listed here are actually making sure that whatever direction you go in AI is clearly aligned with where the business wants to go. So AI is clearly just a tool to support that, and that you're looking forward to the way you're going to assess your success or otherwise with implementation there. We've got some more GPT associated questions and things there. One's around ChatGPT, specifically the new 4.0 version, Omni version that was released. We can upload PDF documents to summarize things. What have you had some experience and things with that? Either of you, I guess, at this point?
I do have my own license that I purchased myself through OpenAI, through ChatGPT, and I have had a little bit of a play in it, and it is pretty amazing. That's obviously it's great because it's faster and it's giving much better quality. What's really interesting though about those AI models is what we're hearing is that these are just almost baby models. They're going to get so much better into the future as well. So if you're a board member thinking about AI in your organization, particularly if you're thinking about changing processes, you need to be thinking actually further out to what some of those other models that come in the future might be able to do, and make sure that you can change and adapt your strategy as the models get quicker and better as we've seen.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, actually, Bede, you were sharing an insight before that was quite interesting around an organization that was trying to deal with wellness and well-being in an organization using AI. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have a customer who uses CEO in their environment. They're a logistics company, and they were telling me how they're working with an organization to build a psychosocial risk tool. And what it involves is, because what psychosocial risk is a real issue for boards. Companies are increasingly being held liable for people getting stressed, or sexual harassment, or bullying, or something like that. Those sorts of things. So they were talking to someone and went, well, what are the predictors of that? And so this sounds really big brother, admittedly, I'm assuming they have safeguards around this, but they're looking to analyze the content of phone calls and emails within their organization, trying to identify psychosocial risks. They're trying to identify bullying that might be via phone or via email, and trying to identify what those key phrases are so they can jump on it early. So I'm not passing judgment on whether I think it's a good idea or not. However, it is an idea, and they're having a crack at it. So I watch this space with much interest.
It does sound like a slightly big brotherish sort of approach, doesn't it? And clearly, whilst the intent is well-meaning, and they're trying to fulfill their governance responsibilities diligently, it does ask some questions. I think we've got the right sort of slide on the screen there. So we sort of hope in that situation they are really being very transparent with everyone about the purpose of what they're doing, and that they have got the appropriate measures for privacy. Hilary, do you have any thoughts on that example?
Yeah, I do. So I guess in response to that, I'd like to talk about how Microsoft has thought about responsible AI and implement it through our organization, because I think there's some good lessons that can be learned from that. So, Microsoft have 6 responsible AI principles that we implemented about 9 years ago into the organization. So things like accountability, inclusiveness, reliability and safety, fairness, transparency, and also privacy and security. So we thought there were some good principles to live by in terms of AI. But what we did was we then operationalized those principles through the business, and we did that by creating an AI standard. And so, for example, when it talked about privacy and security, we sort of operationalized that into what practices and patterns does that mean within the business. I mean, obviously, we're talking about Microsoft, so we're talking about an engineering community and a developer community. And then what we found was that the engineering and developing community, they're really screened out for, don't just tell us to consider privacy and security, but what does that actually mean that we actually need to do? What tools do we need to run? What assessments do we need to run? And then that really helped us make things real within the organization in terms of responsible AI. And then after doing that, what they did is they looked across all the products and services and features and all the Microsoft tools and software that we have, and said, is all of this fit for purpose? Is it doing what it's supposed to be doing? And there was one area where we found ourselves lacking. So, Bede's already talked about how you can use AI in terms of CCTV, and you can do that to kind of recognize faces and things like that. One of the features that they did have was around recognizing the emotion on people's faces. And when we actually ran our principles and our standard across that, we found that we were kind of left wanting. So that particular emotion feature, we actually ended up withdrawing because it wasn't fit for purpose. The research wasn't really robust around how that would actually work in practice when we looked at it, because it's really hard to pick, the emotions on different people's faces, and people are so different and cultures are so different. So we actually removed that particular feature or service from that catalog around, CCTV. And I think that's a really good example of when you are thinking about how to implement with this in the business, make sure you run it across your existing services and the new ones that you're going to be implementing as well, to make sure that you are following your kind of true north in terms of your organizational values and norms.
Thank you. Got a question coming through. We'll start perhaps with you, Hills, and then move to Bede. If a board tasks AI to predict an outcome but does not act on that prediction, are they liable, given that they asked the question?
It's a very good question. It's potentially one for the legal team to have a look at. I'm not sure. I don't have.
We didn't bring our legal panel today, but Bede, do you have a read on this one?
Bede the Bush lawyer from way back.
That's right.
Made up LLB. I don't know about the liability, but what I do know, in terms of a health and safety sense, so our customer who had the 16-year-old have die, the judge, when they sentenced them, they'd pled guilty to a whole bunch of health and safety breaches. When the judge sentenced them, he talked about how the knowledge of near-hit events, health and safety stuff, is bigger than the individual. And that if an organisation, a PCBU, knows, is recording CCTV of near-miss events, whether they look at it or not, it is regarded under the law as they know. So the reality of it is if it's happening, they're liable, whether they know about it or not.
It sounds to me, yeah, close to that sort of definition of reasonably practicable. So I guess it may not be the specific use of AI, but the fact that the board, I guess, is exploring something or asking the question does show that I guess they have some insights or suspicions. And
absolutely. So when it comes to health and safety, near miss events, they're lead indicators. They are predictors. If allowed in a certain number, at some point, someone is going to get injured. So, and when someone's injured, that's a lag indicator. So lead indicators are predictive, ultimately, and boards are liable for lag indicators and therefore lead indicators. So and Paul's, it's a really good question, Paul Brown. I don't know where you are, but it's a great question. If they're using AI to, say, predict maintenance things, etc., they are, unless if they don't act on the information, they're more culpable. Not in the legal sense, but they're more culpable than if they had no idea. If they just were like genuinely had no idea that this thing would blow up, etc.
Okay, we've got to just as move to the next one. This is a question for you, Hilary, just around, so organisations, of course, have different I guess, person power and financial capability. For people to have that sort of to buy a large language model solution that they can use privately, what sort of costs might be involved for an organisation? Sort of thinking of not-for-profit organisations or smaller organisations, what kind of ballpark quantum are we talking about for organisations to use a solution like that?
So if I'm thinking of not-for-profits, probably the first place they want to start is with some of those productivity AI, because I guess the costs are really known because you're buying kind of like a monthly subscription to those. And also you can see some of the benefit for them in terms of, you know, efficiency and productivity and perhaps quality as well. So I can only speak to Microsoft there, but so we have, so our Copilot is around $30 a month at the moment. So that's kind of the quantum you are sort of looking at. So what's that kind of on an annual rate? Sort of 360, you know, USD a year. And I guess then you've got to think about what's the return on investment for that. To think about whether, you know, that does help, you know, your organization or not.
It's quite accessible and quite scalable as well. Let's move to the next slide there. I mean, putting my diversity of thought hat on, thinking about that question before around liability and just ethics more generally, this is really something that you'd want to delegate to a group of people to kind of think of what are going to be your principles, what are the ethical things in your organization, what are the priorities for your organization, how will AI fit with those? So it's certainly not something you're going to rely on a single person. It might be something that needs to be discussed more widely. And I guess one of our recommendations here is to actually sort of formally convene a team or a committee that's going to help take that responsibility and help to think sort of broadly around it.
Yeah, I can perhaps respond to that first. You're absolutely right. It is cross-functional in terms of thinking about AI. And therefore, because of that, you really need that education very much at the top of the organisation so that all of the senior leadership team are on the same page, or at least can contribute into the strategy discussion. So that education at the top is really important. Then when you're starting to think about, you know, what the business problems might be that you might apply AI to, and then maybe you come up with a long shopping list of things that you might think to do in your organization. That is definitely the point where you want to get a committee together. They're going to consist of not just the IT team or the developers, but also like your risk people, if you have them, privacy, security, legal, HR there as well to represent kind of people. You want to make sure that you're getting a wide group of people with the right lenses on those, because as well as doing sort of a risk assessment on each of those to working out, where you want to start and which ones you're okay to move forward with. You want to think about it in a portfolio perspective so that you're not just doing sort of scattergun AI use cases and initiatives, but you're actually thinking, what is the investment we're going to be putting into AI this year, and making sure that's going to give you the most bang for your buck or the most impact, and also done in the right way with the right guardrails and things like that involved.
Should organizations feel concerned if they're not already undertaking an AI initiative, or sort of aligning their strategy with AI, or many team members are experimenting with AI as we speak now?
Can I answer that?
You could jump in there.
Yeah, so I spoke at a conference last week, an AI forum called M2, and there was a bunch of people that spoke, and effectively the message to the group was, you're all doomed if you're not doing this now, and you're behind the times, and it's all over, Red Rover. And there was organisations there that import steel and distribute it, and there was a whole range of different organisations. And probably what I would say is that take a chill pill. It's all going to be all right. There are some areas that if you're you're a content creator for a business, let's say you're a marketing consultancy, yeah, this stuff is going to change your world, granted, absolutely. But for most organizations who do physical things, whether they're manufacturing soap or something, this stuff will assist in some areas and have no impact on others. So I think there's no need to freak out and think we've got to be doing something here urgently, blah, blah, blah. Fear is not a method in this stuff. It's like eyes open. Start with something small. I get Hillary's use cases, as she mentioned before, around an internal HR tool or a chatbot for a customer service type functions. They're perfect places to start. But they are often, that's just another channel, just like a website was in 1998, getting your first website live. That was the cool thing to do back then. This is it's another tool. There's no need to freak out and think we're doomed. That's my take.
I agree. I think we are still early. I think you can do a lot of if your organization isn't ready, then you could still get educated around what it could mean for your organization. And particularly, I'm very hot on people thinking about responsible AI training and what that looks like in your organization, because the reality is your staff are already using AI. They've brought their own to work, even if you haven't provided it. So you can't just kind of think that it's not happening. But I think that we can think about, well, how do we make sure we implement this in a safe way? And I've just got in the chat, I've just put something from the AI forum in New Zealand. They actually did quite a cool piece of work where they looked at what does AI governance look like in different sized organizations. So from light to robust to comprehensive, and sort of pointing towards some resources or frameworks that organizations can use as a bit of a starter for 10, because not everyone can do the NIST framework, which is like a AI risk management framework. It's like an ISO level thing. But there will be some smaller pieces that you can sort of implement within your organization, or that you can educate staff and make them aware of to make sure that they're using it responsibly as well. And I have no doubt the Australian probably AI forum has some great resources in this area also.
Fantastic. So take a chill pill. Think of the fit for purpose for the size and scope and things of your organization. We've got one final slide just with some other takeaways looking forward to encouraging innovation and experimentation with AI. So Sean, do you want to pop that one on? Just to finish this up, a couple of other quick rapid fire questions there. One for you, Hills, is I guess this is if you're using like a ChatGPT type thing and you tick the opt out of training box. Does that then keep you safe from your data being shared with the public large language model or not? Or not necessarily?
So I guess if tools are provided free by companies, then there's usually some way that they're using your data in relation for you using the tool for free. I'm not sure where this box is, whether it's on the subscription model or the free version. But I'd definitely be looking up the T's and C's if you can to find out. I'm just not sure on that particular occasion.
Okay, thank you. Now, Bede, have you got a final takeaway message for our participants today?
Not really, other than it's been a delightful conversation. And the questions have been most interesting. I think if I had a takeaway message, it is this stuff is fundamentally good, but it needs to be used ethically and judiciously. My key takeaway is 10% technology, 90% human stuff to be successful in the deployment of it. It's absolutely vital that you focus your efforts on the usage, the inculcation, the training, toolboxing, etc., versus just the technology. Otherwise, you do not get the ROI that's promised.
Thank you, Bede. Before I pass to you, Hilary, for your last comment, for me, it seems like if we're on that sort of Gartner hype cycle, we've had that peak of inflated expectations. We might be slightly falling into a little bit of a trough of disillusionment at the moment, but no doubt we'll soon be reaching a sort of slope of enlightenment. On to you, Hilary. What's your last thought for today?
I think my last thoughts on this are make sure you identify a business problem first and then apply the AI. Don't look for the AI use case, but think about what problems are within your business that you really need to solve first. Like, for example, what's costing you heaps of money? That would be great if you could use AI to reduce the costs of. What's causing you, the most pain? Or what are you spending your most time doing? So I'd look for those things rather than applying, just AI generally to the business, identify the problem and then apply AI. And just keep in mind, so we used to talk about digital disruption the whole time with our customers. It's all about digital disruption. Well, now it's more about AI reinvention because it literally doesn't just apply to the technology team, but it applies to HR, marketing, sales, operations, privacy and risk teams. So it's an exciting time, and it's about how this will never kind of have this time again in terms of it is going to change the way we work. And I think that's a really exciting piece. And just try and learn from those people that are actually doing it. So I've just put our transparency report into the chat there as well, in case that is of use, which talks about, how we identify risks, how we're assessing risks and mitigating them. And, maybe there's some information there that is useful for other organizations.
Thank you. Back to you, Sean.
Thanks, guys. That was a really interesting conversation. I learned quite a bit myself there. So thanks, everybody. You'll receive an email from us pretty shortly, which will include a video of today's webinar, along with the slides that we took you through today. As you leave, don't forget to complete our 1-minute survey and go into the draw for our hamper. We'll announce the winner later on tomorrow. There's also a number of webinars coming up in June that I'd like to point you to. This is on our resources site on our website. So we've got some great topics coming up. We have a couple of masterclasses coming up as well. So have a look at those and see if there's any content you'd like to take a deeper look at. So Lloyd, thank you very much for organising this webinar. Bede, Hilary, thank you very much for your attention today and your conversation today and information. It was really, really helpful. We look forward to seeing you next, everybody, at our next webinar. Have a great day.